the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Teach for America Corps members are dedicated, talented teachers who work alongside efforts that are underway in communities across the country to close the achievement gap.
Despite the heat index, it is time to head back to school. For students, this can be a time of anxiety and anticipation. What students don't realize or care about is that teachers, especially new and very young teachers, are just as keyed up and just as anxious. I remember very well 48 years ago the excitement and pure fear of my first days and weeks as a high school teacher. Did I have anything important to share? Did I have any skills to help the students? Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. For many children, including those in Cincinnati Public Schools, the region's largest system, it is time to head back to school. Among the teachers heading back to classrooms in Southwest Ohio will be a corps of 70 Teach for America teachers. Since its founding in the region in 2012, 190 young people have taught in local schools. 50% of them are still in the teaching profession. Nationally, the idea for Teach for America began in 1989 with a senior thesis by Wendy Kopp, an undergraduate at Princeton University, troubled by the shortage of high-quality college students entering the nation's classrooms that serve poorest students. In the last 27 years, over 50,000 Corps members have taught in schools serving economically poor American families in 50 different regions. As teachers and students prepare to head back to their schools, I am joined this morning by Ben Lindy, the Executive Director for Teach for America of Southwest Ohio. Mr. Lindy started this chapter of Teach for America in 2012. He was a Corps member for 3 years, teaching 7th grade social studies, perfect topic, in Eastern North Carolina after college and before starting here. Ben, welcome back to Newsmaker. I think I had you on just as you were starting this back in 2012 to start about this. So numbers look good. You've put a lot of people in local classrooms.
And we're just delighted to be here, Dan. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that's different now from when we started 4 years ago is that whereas in 2012 about 100 Teach for America alumni lived in Cincinnati, people who had done the program, now 4 years later over 200 Teach for America alumni live here, and over 80% of them are doing work that either directly involves education or impacts low-income communities. So we're thrilled about the progress we've made, excited about the future. So
having that sort of graduate group in the area, how does that affect new teachers? Are you able to connect people and can some of those people become mentors?
They absolutely can, you know, and one of the things that is so exciting to see is the way that our more experienced teachers kind of put their arms around and adopt and take care of the younger ones who are coming up. And I think you have two guests who are going to come on in the second half of the show, and they've both been real leaders for teachers who have come behind them, which is something we appreciate. I'd also share too that some of the best and most powerful mentors we've had in our work in the last 4 years are teachers outside of Teach for America. I mean, we're very grateful for the partnerships and relationships that we've built, and see this very much as a team effort.
So this is Teach for America of Southwest Ohio, but actually your region is more than just not just the city of Cincinnati, but much broader than that. How far do you go?
So our particular region works with teachers in northern Kentucky also. So we work in Covington Public Schools and Newport Public Schools, and it goes as far north as Dayton Public Schools. Now we're one of a little more than 50 regions across the country, and we work in Cincinnati, Dayton, northern Kentucky.
So what is sort of the range of schools? The two teachers that we're going to have on the second part are both teaching in Cincinnati public schools. But what's the range of schools that you can place your teachers in?
Sure. So our criteria is we look for high poverty public schools. So within that, we place our biggest partners are Cincinnati Public and Dayton Public Schools, the big districts. Second largest are our Northern Kentucky partners. We do work with a few charter schools in Cincinnati and Dayton, and then also some Head Start centers that work with very young kids. Okay,
but the bulk of them are in the public schools.
That's right. Yep. All the schools we work in are publicly funded schools. All the schools we work in are high poverty schools. The biggest partners we have are the districts, particularly Cincinnati and Dayton.
And how does this work financially? You're recruiting high talent individuals who may or may not have a background in teaching. We'll get to that in a second. But you're placing them in these schools. How does that work financially, both for them as individuals and for the organization?
Yeah, so our teachers are full-time employees of the districts where they teach, and they have to interview for their jobs. So what we do in the spring is we bring a group of new teachers, and they interview with our district partners across Cincinnati, Dayton, Northern Kentucky for open positions. And like any new teacher, they have to interview and be hired. So then they're then paid by the district as any first-time teacher would be.
At the same level?
Whatever is normal for a first-year teacher in that district is where our teachers start.
Okay, that's where your teachers start. Now, what kind of people at this point, because the program's now been around for over 25 years, and I don't know how much it's evolved over time in terms of the type of person that they're targeting to draw into this, but how would you describe sort of some basic elements of the character, the background of the teachers that are the individuals who are attracted to this?
Yeah, so at the most basic level, we recruit college seniors, but also professionals. So we have some folks who come to Teach for America from a second career. And we look very carefully at the data we have on who our best teachers have been and what are the things we could observe about them when they applied to the program, and then that's what we hire for. So that tends to be things like people with strong leadership experience, people who have experience building relationships across different diverse groups of people, people who work really hard, don't give up, and believe in kids. And I would just mention also that one of the things that's been most fun to see over the last 4 years is how this particular program has recruited both people who are from Cincinnati, because I grew up here. I went to Walnut Hills High School and I love Cincinnati. I would have loved to have taught here, but I went to North Carolina because the program didn't exist here. So it's been great to see people who are from Cincinnati come back home to do the work here, but it's also been great to see us recruit diverse talent from across the country. One of our teachers, now entering his 5th year in Cincinnati Public Schools, he was one of our founding teachers there, grew up in Tennessee, but has very much made Cincinnati his home.
So how long is the commitment to be part of Teach for America? You know, here's somebody who's been here 5 years. Is that person still part of Teach for America? Yeah,
so we require a minimum 2-year teaching commitment, and we call people in those 2 years core members. But the commitment to Teach for America really is a lifelong commitment, because as an alum, after those 2 years, the idea is that you apply the lessons you learned in the classroom to try to make the system better. So we have many people who stay in the classroom. We have others who are studying to become principals. We have one who's an elected school board member for the district. We have several working with some of the urban Catholic schools. I mean, really, we should be a group of people committed to making the system better for kids, and we're excited to do that.
So the point here is, as I read the material about Teach for America, it's not just about improving education. It's improving education in areas and in schools that serve impoverished families and impoverished children. Is that the point?
I think
Poverty
that's right.
is really the point.
I think that's right. And this is, I think, one of the biggest moral and economic issues our city and our country have to face. I mean, if you look last year at just 5th graders, kids in low-income schools, less than 35% passed the math exam, Ohio's math exam last year. If you go to the suburbs, that number is over 90%. So 35% versus 90%. And I believe that's not about the kids. You know, it's not about the kids' potential. All children are born with enormous promise and enormous potential. We just don't have systems yet that are designed to get all kids a fair shot.
Yeah. How many of your teachers, how many of the teachers that you recruit as they're coming into the system have any formal education training in, you know, come out with an education degree or a certificate or whatever? Yeah,
there are several. I would say across Teach for America, maybe it's about 1/3 of our new teachers have some experience in education prior. And I think that's one of the nice things about the program is we bring folks to high poverty schools from a real range of backgrounds. Some studied education, some studied mathematics, some you're going to hear from one in a second who is a business major. So it's nice. I think there are great teachers out there. We just need more of them. So someone who's coming in who has not gone through the formal education courses, has not had time as intern or observer even in classrooms, especially in urban center schools.
what do? How do you help that person get ready for next week
Absolutely.
when they go into the classroom?
And I think, you know, Dan, teaching was far and away the most challenging job I've had. And I'm incredibly grateful for the support I receive from Teach for America. And we run a number of different things that starts with 8 weeks of training over the summer. And that training involves both coursework with us, but also student teaching. So we send all of our teachers to Atlanta for the summer, where they're a student teacher in the Atlanta Public Schools summer school, where they get coached by a mentor teacher. Oh. Now, the training doesn't stop after their student teaching and after their coursework with us. They retain a coach over the course of their 2 years teaching with us, who comes to their classroom, who has been one of our most successful teachers, and helps them improve their craft.
So this is an ongoing training process, mentoring process.
That's absolutely right. And I don't know what your experience as a teacher, but mine was, you know, you hear about all these ideas and they sound so so clear and so easy to do, and then you try them in front of your kids, and it's very difficult. And so that's why I think the summer student teaching matters so much, and also why the ongoing coaching does. The
most important lesson I learned my first year teaching was I had 5 classes. 4 of them were going great. One of them it was a group I had of boys between gym and lunch. And I was in the middle. They could have killed me at any moment. And I shared that with the principal about November, early November. And he said to me, well, I'll come in and help, give you some pointers. And he said, but you're just going to have to work your way through this. He said, but in the long run, you'll learn more about teaching from that class than you will from all these classes. And I take that with me. Failure in any one situation can build to become something completely different in the future. So
I think that's true, and the lesson that has really struck with me over time is that this issue of educational inequality, I really do believe is a solvable problem. When we look at some of the teachers who have come through our program, from our very first group through today, you know, we see teachers who make 2+ years of growth with kids coming from high poverty backgrounds, coming in many years behind. And you see that enough times, not just from our teachers, but from great teachers across the district. I think this is a problem that we can solve.
Okay. Now, I'm going to get you off so I can get to the really interesting people. But to learn more about Teach for America, check out their website, which is swohio.teachforamerica.org. Is that correct? That's correct. I think that's right. That's what I put in there. Stay tuned. After the break, I'll be joined by Teach for America Corps member and alumni who is still in the classroom. Welcome back. By nature, teachers are idealists and optimists, willing to take the long view. Every generation of teachers believes that it can change society through their students. The reality is daunting, and it's a very daunting challenge. In response to Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty in 1964, a Tall 12 documentary focused on Sands School in the West End and breaking the grip of poverty.
They believe they'll rise above their squalid beginnings. And they believe in their teacher. Their teacher is Miss Sandra Lewis, a dedicated young woman.
Sandra Lewis Sparrow Wilkinson, after nearly 40 years in education, came back last year only to discover that Cincinnati now has the 4th worst childhood poverty rate in America.
It's like, whoa, what's going on here? I couldn't believe that. And to know that where you were born and respected, that place that you loved, is for kids that you loved and worked with, is the 4th worst? Is that how you say it? Yes. Wow, how did that happen?
I am joined now by 2 members of Teach for America. Aiesha White taught for 2 years as a member of TFA. She is now a teacher at Westwood School in the Cincinnati Public Schools. She teaches 5th and 6th grade English. And Claire Frank is currently a member of the Teach for America Corps and is entering her 2nd year as a teacher at Carson Elementary in the Cincinnati Public Schools, where she teaches 3rd grade math. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
You know, the reason I was intrigued by that 1964 film, the spirit of that teacher was probably very similar to the spirit that you have going in, believing that you can change the curve. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So how do you react to what you just heard from that teacher, and 51 years later, what she came back to find?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember that, you know, change takes a lot of time. There are a lot of different factors at play. And we have to, keep pushing. We have to keep inspiring our kids to do great things.
Yeah. Claire?
Definitely. And like Aiesha said, it takes a lot of time. Just being a first-year teacher last year, I had a whole lot of things I wanted to accomplish immediately, which I soon realized was very unrealistic. But also, to echo Aiesha, just working together, especially with the other teachers and leaders in my school, has just been so great, and clearly that's the way to go.
So when you were an undergraduate and you went, where did you go to school?
I went to Miami.
Miami
Yes.
University. What was your major, and did you imagine at that point being a teacher?
I did not. So I started out studying business. I actually graduated with a business degree. I studied marketing and analytics. And it was not until my junior year that I really got interested in the Teach for America program. I'd heard about it before and always been a little bit interested, but it wasn't until I actually got to talk to a campus recruiter and then a friend who was doing it in another region.
So what was the motivation from business degree to wanting to do this?
I knew I wanted to get involved in education, and the more I read about it, the more interested I became. I wanted to join a group of people who wanted to make an impact and hopefully make an impact myself. I knew it would be very challenging, very motivating, and never a dull moment.
Yeah. Aiesha, what about you? You went to Ohio State University.
I did.
What was your major?
International Studies and Economics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And imagine yourself as a teacher?
Not until about my senior year. I was very interested in policy at the time. I did some internships in Washington, D.C. But then I really realized that I needed to do something at the grassroots level to truly make that impact that I wanted to make. And education was always extremely important in my family, so Teach for America just seemed like the best fit because the people were so passionate and so engaged.
And now you've been at this for 5 years, and as Ben said, the commitment to Teach for America, no matter what you end up doing, is a lifelong commitment.
Absolutely.
It's not just 2 years. Why do you continue, and what do you imagine eventually? Will this be your lifelong commitment?
Well, personally, I keep going back to the classroom, number one, because I love my kids. They're just great. I love being in the classroom. Two, I see myself actually providing a sense of culture and a unique perspective in my school, in a school that's doing a lot of great things, and I want to be part of it. But I think eventually I'm going to move into education policy. Education policy.
So probably some more work for you at graduate school is in the future for you. Claire, what about you? How do you imagine, you're starting your second year.
I am.
How do you imagine teaching fitting in a long term for you?
I definitely see it there. I'm very excited to go into my second year. It's hard to say what I'll be doing in 5 years, but I do know I will stay involved in education in some capacity for the rest of my life.
You know, one of the criticisms that's been brought up of Teach for America is that people come and they don't stay. And some teachers, other teachers who aren't part of Teach for America, say, well, this is sort of, people coming, doing a few things, and then leaving. What's been the relationship between each of you, and the staffs that you teach with, the other teachers in your buildings?
I've personally had great relationships at my schools. I've had a lot of people who acted as a support system for me, especially in my first couple of years, who were very supportive of me and praised me when I did really great things. So I haven't had many issues at all.
So that's you're just part of the faculty.
Exactly.
Definitely the same. I feel so lucky. I'm in a great school with very supportive administration, other teachers. Like I said, I just finished my first year, so I'm still learning a lot, and I feel like I can learn so much from everyone around me, and I feel very fortunate.
Yeah. As you go into this school year, and we are facing not only the questions about educational testing and attainment and all of that sort of thing, which is sort of in that narrow channel of education, but Teach for America is about changing the curve on poverty. How do you see what you're doing in terms of responding to the question of helping people move out of poverty in our community where poverty is so pervasive?
Well, right off the bat, I think of three things. One, through the culture of my classroom, I definitely always teach my kids to be leaders, both within the school and in their community. So that comes through in text and different activities that we do. Also in academics, I had one student who came to me at a first grade level, and I had to work on a one-to-one basis with
And you were teaching what grade technically?
6th grade.
Okay,
So he was in the
6th
sixth grade,
but first grade level in
Right.
terms of reading skills?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so he had a learning disability. So
Okay.
I had to work with our intervention specialist to give him specialized lesson plans. And by the end of the school year, he had made significant gains, about 4 years worth of growth,
Okay.
which was really impressive. So knocking down those academic barriers and then getting involved with my school would be that third piece. So our local decision-making committee, having that sort of voice on those
And are you
panels.
on the local decision-making committee, LSDMC?
Yep,
Okay, for your school?
I am.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't, okay, as a teacher,
Correct.
did the faculty select you to do that, or is that something you volunteered for?
Kind of both.
Kind of both, okay, yeah. We volunteer you, yes. Claire, what about you?
Yeah, so I teach math, like you mentioned, and one thing that I'm really excited to incorporate this year are some lessons on financial literacy, because I don't think it's ever too early to start learning about that, and I think that's perfectly applicable for my kids in the real world. So that's just one thing I'm going to be doing in my classroom to help them get ahead.
So, and these are third graders?
Yes.
What would you say to people when they look at test results and they see test results in Cincinnati Public Schools versus test results in fill in the blank suburban school? What would you say about the children you know and the educational process that they're involved in?
Well, I like to focus on my students making gains, growing from where they are. The reality of the situation is that a lot of kids are not where they should be, but the best that we can do is work extremely hard to grow them, to get them on the track to be where they should be by their grade level.
How about you?
It's the same thing.
And math,
Yeah.
that's, you know, reading is one thing.
Right.
Math, though, even seems more problematic for a lot of students.
Yes, yeah. So, like Aiesha said, just working daily to make as big of gains as you can to slowly close the gap. And then also, since I do teach third grade, it's the third grade reading guarantee. So they are really focused on reading as well to get promoted to the next grade. So even incorporating math vocabulary, so things that can be cross-curricular and applicable to their other subjects.
So you're working, do you find, this is another sort of image that people have out there, that we spend too much time on testing? On standardized testing? Getting ready for and taking standardized testing?
Well, the way I look at it is that our curriculum is pretty much just the map to the test. So if I'm teaching the curriculum and all the skills, then hopefully that is most of what's going to be encompassed on the test. So I look at it as test prep, but I also look at it as the general math facts that they need to know to be successful.
Yeah, and I would second that completely. One thing that we learn about in Teach for America is to plan backwards. So looking at the test and doing different benchmarks and then planning our lessons accordingly. So of course, you know, we want kids to do great on the test, but at the same time, we want them to just kind of learn in general and be exposed to different sorts of content. So I think there's a good balance of the two.
How do you think this experience, not just being teachers, but teaching as part of the Teach for America program mentality, how do you think it's changed you?
What a question.
Claire?
Honestly, it's just been so inspiring to work with such a dedicated, committed group of people, both at my school and in the Teach for America Corps. It's been especially great to do so in Cincinnati since I was born and raised here. I think it has made me committed to the fight for educational equity, regardless of how that'll eventually play out in my life, but it's been inspiring.
Aiesha, we only have about 30 seconds.
I would second that. Some of the greatest group of people I've ever met, and truly genuine and authentic to changing the narrative for education.
Okay. So we're just about out of time, but as you go back into the classroom, when do you actually go back in this year?
We get kids next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, so good luck. I'm sure they're all just going to be eager and ready to go, and we'll have been, studying math facts all summer.
Of course.
So, thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. If you are a teacher ready to test out that new lesson plan, a student with a new backpack and fresh supplies, or parents ready to support your child and their teachers, I wish you the best of all school years. I'm even a bit jealous not to be feeling the excitement of a new start at this time of the year. Have a good week.